Hey guys, the movie that we're going to recap today is about David, a security guard who survives a fatal train accident only to be tracked down by a man named Elijah Price, who claims that David is blessed with superhuman abilities. Unbreakable is an American neo-noir superhero thriller film written, produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan in the year 2000. To find out the whole story, make sure to watch the video until the end. Now let's get started. The movie begins as we see a baby being born in West Philadelphia. This is Elijah Price, who was so brittle that he was born with broken arms and legs. As he grows older, he is taunted and ridiculed at school. He is called names by his classmates, especially Mr. Glass, since he was so fragile. Time passes by, and as an adult, he runs Limited Edition, a successful, high-priced comic book art gallery specializing in original drawings of superheroes. In the next scene, we see David Dunn, who is the security guard at the local college stadium. His marriage is crumbling, and in fact, his wife Audrey sleeps downstairs in their son's room, while David's son sleeps upstairs with his dad. David has a job interview in New York, and on his way back home, David's train malfunctions and derails, killing everyone on board except David. David didn't even get a scratch, let alone killed. After the memorial service for the crash victims, David finds a note from Limited Edition on his windshield. The letter asks, "How many days of your life have you been sick?" Dave wonders why he got that note and what it meant. He begins asking his boss and his wife, but no one can ever remember him being sick. He then takes his son to Limited Edition, where he meets Elijah. Elijah explains his theory to David. Elijah's theory is that if he can be born with brittle bones and can hurt very easily, shouldn't there be someone who is the exact opposite? Elijah then tells him that he has researched every disaster to find a sole survivor without a scratch, but has had no luck. But after years of searching, he has finally found one in David Dunn. David thinks it's interesting, but also that Elijah is just nuts. Back at the stadium, David gets a call that there's someone there trying to sneak in and is asking for David. Who could it be? Of course it's Elijah. He starts explaining his comic book theories to David. The theories about everyday men being superheroes, having powers they haven't yet realized, and so on. Later, David bumps into a guy in a line and tells the security at the end of the line to start frisking people. They watch as the guy David bumped into sees everyone being frisked and leaves the line. Elijah asks David what that was all about, and David tells him that when he bumped into him, he had an image of a certain kind of handgun. David ignores the image and goes back to work, while Elijah follows the guy David bumped into. They go down a long flight of stairs, and Elijah falls down, shattering his leg and breaking several other bones, but the last thing he sees is the man's handgun, just as David described it. Elijah was right. David does have some kind of a special gift that he hasn't realized yet. Back at home, David is working out in the basement with his weight set. His son comes to him and tells him that he believes everything Elijah said about him being a hero with a special gift. David still doesn't believe it. David asks his son to take some weight off, but without him knowing, his son puts more weight on. David manages to lift 250 pounds, the most he has ever done. His son is shook as he continues putting on more weight until David is now up to 350 pounds. He has had all this strength all along, but he never knew it. Elijah needs his leg rehabbed, so he goes to the hospital where his nurse is Audrey, David's wife. They begin talking as Elijah asks her questions about her and David, and she explains to him how when they were going out, David was a star football player, but he got in a car accident due to icy roads. After the accident, David never played football again. It was because of that she and David were married. Had he continued to play, she knows they would have grown apart. David is back at work when he gets a call from his son's school that his son has been hurt. His son had hoped that some of David's superhero traits had rubbed off on him. He tried to protect someone that was being picked on and instead got hurt in the process. The school nurse remembers David from when he was at the same school. In fact, it was because of David that they have strict rules about the pool. It seems that David had been picked on near the pool when he was a student there. He fell in and was left in the pool for hours to drown. He was found at the bottom of the pool, but somehow survived. David tells this story to Elijah to prove that in fact David can get hurt. Elijah tells him that every superhero has a weakness and that David's kryptonite is water. The water from the pool he fell into and the water from the icy roads that caused his accident. David's wife then tells him that surviving the train crash was a sign that maybe they should give their marriage another try. They decide to go out on a date where he explains to her that he felt like their marriage was over when he stopped waking her up after he had a bad dream. The next night, David breaks into the train station and examines some of the wrecked trains. He starts recalling his own car crash from years earlier and remembers that he wasn't hurt at all. In fact, he had to use his superhuman strength to rescue Audrey from the flaming vehicle. He then goes to Elijah and tells him he is right. He has never been sick or injured in any way. Elijah tells him that it's no coincidence that David is in the security field and that he needs to go to places where people are in danger and protect them. It's a rainy day and David, wearing a hooded rain poncho, heads to Penn Station. Hundreds of people are passing by. Whenever someone bumps into David, he has a vision of that person doing a certain wrong or an evil thing. The one lady he bumps into is a jewel thief, another a rapist, but when the maintenance man bumps into him, David gets a horrible vision. The vision is of a man going to someone's home and killing the homeowner. David, still wearing the poncho that now looks more and more like a superhero's cape, follows the maintenance man as he leaves work. The guy goes to a nice house in a nice neighborhood. David sneaks in the back and finds the dead homeowner inside. He goes upstairs and rescues two sisters tied up in their bathroom. He goes into another room and finds the mother tied up. The window is open and David looks out. When he turns back around, there's the maintenance worker and he pushes David out the window. David lands on the backyard pool that has its winter cover on. Suddenly, the cover starts collapsing with David's weight and he gets all tangled up underwater with the cover. Remember, water is David's kryptonite. He begins drowning as the two sisters force a pole down to him and David grabs it and is saved. David heads back upstairs and after wrestling with the guy, he finally kills him by breaking his neck. The next scene is David back at home hanging up his poncho, which is now his superhero cape, as he carries his sleeping wife upstairs to their bed. As he's taking her to the bedroom, she wakes up and asks him what is wrong, to which David replies that he had a bad dream. In the morning, while having breakfast, David slides the newspaper over to his son and holds a finger to his mouth to shush him. The headline tells of a mystery hero that saved the two girls and their mother. The picture is an artist's rendition of what the girls saw. It shows a superhero-like figure with a hood and cape. The boy looks up at his dad, and David just smiles and nods. That's when David's son understands that the superhero in the newspaper is his dad, and he tears up with the great news. David then goes to Elijah's gallery, where Elijah is having a huge gathering for a special show. He and David go to Elijah's back office so they can discuss what had happened. Elijah has been in a wheelchair since his fall. He is holding the newspaper portraying David as a hero who saved the girls, and is really proud of David, much like Christopher Walken in Stephen King's The Dead Zone. While shaking hands, David has visions of Elijah setting a building on fire, causing a plane crash, and finally, a vision of Elijah exiting the driving compartment of the train that crashed with David in it. David looks around Elijah's office and is horrified at what he sees. Newspaper clippings of hundreds of disasters around the world. Elijah is the mastermind behind all these events. He has staged them for his own sick benefit. Finding that out hurts David at his core as he begins crying. Just like in the comics, every evil villain needs a worthy adversary, and Elijah has finally found his. David backs away in horror as Elijah then proclaims, "They call me Mr. Glass." Just before the final credits, a message appears that says David contacted the authorities and Elijah is now in a mental institution for the criminally insane. This is it for today's video. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.